Okay, this video is going to be about how we're going to actually place holes in this part. And specifically, it's going to be these two hole features here, and then this single hole feature here. This one's going to be a little bit simpler than the other two. So I suppose I'll start with that one first, okay? But we're going to want to make sure now that we have kind of an orientation and are aware of where we're placing these holes. So here we go. With that in mind, this is how we're going to do it. So from the previous step, you may have been oriented around here and notice that the origin is right here, right now, that part. If you want to get back, again, remember you can hover over here under that house icon and it's bringing us to this now isometric view. It's going to make a little bit more sense. So to create that simple hole feature that's down in here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this top face right here. I'm going to come over here to Sketch, Create Sketch. Now looking straight down on that top surface, I'm going to actually move it over a little bit so I can see a little bit better, coming down. And now here's what I want to do. I'm in sketch mode. You can tell that by seeing this stop sketch icon and this sketch palette dialog box over here. I'm going to create sketch. Whoops, excuse me. I did that already, so we don't need to create sketch again. We're already there. Sketch right here. Come down. Clicking on this down thing. Point. Creates a sketch point. Exactly what we want. Now we don't have to be super concerned with where we're clicking. It'll snap to these points. That might be where we want it, might not. So we can try clicking right there. Okay. For right now I only want that one single point. Now we're going to have to take a look back at our drawing here. We're going to want to carefully now dimension this point from this corner there and then potentially coming up from someplace else. So this may actually be a little bit challenging. Guess what? I'm going to add myself in another point. Do all these points at once because this drawing kind of has all those things going on. So here we go. Oops, daisy, not what I wanted. There we go. Here it is then. I need to add a couple more points in. Point. Come in here. We'll place a point right there. I'm going to place a point right there. Okay, so now we actually have 3 points right here. All right. Kind of notice based off the drawing that there is a relationship between all 3 of these points. And as an example, what we can do here is I'm going to select that point. And if I were to click then onto that point, you don't get anything. But if I come back up to this point, this upper corner right here, then on the sketch palette over here, we actually have something called relationships that we can apply to these things. So I'm going to want to say horizontal vertical. So I'm going to click that. And that point, now, those, and then this little icon, this little thing here pops up on those points. What I could do now is if I made that incorrectly, then I could actually click on that thing there and delete those. Now if I click and drag, that happens. But no, I really did want to have that, so I'm clicking now that point, vertical to that point. Same deal, but see how it pulled this point in line with that one. And now if I click and drag these things, if I move this one left and right, the other one follows along. And opposite of that, click there and there. So now these things are vertically aligned and have a relationship there that keeps those in line with each other. Which in this case is a good thing, because how I decided to dimension this part in the beginning was this way. Here, so we're going to be concerned with this dimension. That 2x times 250 means 2 holes have that. And guess what? That relates to both this hole and that hole. So let's move this off to the side a little bit so we can still, it's not working for me. Go bye-bye. There we go. So, same deal as before. D button. D button right there. Hitting the D key. I can then dimension from that point to there. Hey, what do you know? It was already actually at a very nice 1/4 of an inch. I could try retyping that. And now I've pinned that point there in space. If I hit escape key now, I could still move this point up and down vertically. That other point stays stationary. Well, we've got to come back now and take a look. Well, what's the relationship between this point and that point? Well, it is then 1 1/4 inches apart. 1.250 inches. So D, distance between that and that, 1.250. Whoa, it's not quite what I wanted, I guess, but hold on. Now I'm going to apply another distance dimension from that line there, from that point down there. Actually, excuse me. Actually, we can still click and drag this point here. I've got it actually dimensioned. Oop! And so see, when I clicked and dragged there, this thing then popped up. That could cause me some grief. I don't necessarily, that's telling it to align to something else. I want to delete that. So if that happened to you, be aware of that. D there, and then distance to there, and that then also 1/4 of an inch. 250 is what we want. Enter. Now these 2 points are, no matter how much I'm clicking and trying to drag that, they're not moving. Those are fully defined in space. So now what do you think we have to do at this point here? Well, we're going to do another relationship. We're going to add a relationship, so let's do another horizontal vertical. That line was actually already selected when I clicked there. Click that. Now that pulled that one up in line. And now we have this distance relationship to apply here. That, by looking at my drawing, is 2. This should be 2.250 inches per the drawing that I've provided. Hit enter. Guess what? Since that's horizontally located there, if I click and drag now, as much as I'm doing, this point here is actually now locked into space. So that's what I wanted to have happen. Good. So I'm now going to stop sketch. Now this has been a preparatory step, so that now we can use this hole. Create. We could have done an extruded, like sketched a circle and then extruded a hole, but these are actually going to be drilled features ultimately. And this hole functionality is very important. If you know that it's going to be a drilling process or a simple hole you're making, you're going to want to use this. So again, you can come down here, you can hit the H, the letter H on your keyboard to do the same thing. So now here's hole. Whoa. So what happened here was, it's now looking for, I had gone into this with that point selected. I don't want to work with that hole quite yet, so I'm going to unselect that there. Now instead of that one, I'm going to click this hole right here that's going to relate to this simpler hole feature here. So that's a pretty small diameter hole compared to what I've just ended up with right now. It's going to be a diameter of 124 thousandths and 8/10ths of an inch. 10 thousandths of an inch, I should say. So right now, how do we think we're going to adjust this? And also then the depth that needs to go to, I'll have to look that up. I think I neglected to put that in on the drawing. Let me just type something in for right now. So depth, that is going to go to say 300 thousandths of an inch deep, just for no big, I'm just going to call that for right now. The diameter here then instead is going to be, alter this and see how the depth of that hole changed. Now when I type this in, 2.1248. Ah, that looks a lot better. Now, tip angle here, it's important that when we learn more about machining, this, instead of making, if we were to extrude a hole like this simply down, we're going to be left with a flat bottom hole. That looks pretty and everything, but that's not really particularly practical when it comes to actually making something, okay? So drills, when we actually have drills, have a point here, angle. And 118 degrees is a typical default value for most drills, but you could come in here and alter that to be 120 degrees. So there are some 120 degree drill tips out there, or other common sizes now are 135, that. So see how this tip in here is either getting sharper or less sharp. But I'm going to come back here and do 118. That's a good safe bet for right now. That looks good, and it's set up to be distance there, all that, objects to cut. So I'm going to say at that point, okay. So that very simply there is one hole there, but we're not quite done. Let's save this to the next video.